Alright, who has a 100-word summary of the trouble you guys got up into last session?
Oh god, it was so long ago.
We went back and got.
Give me the map.
We killed the horrible wall of flesh.
Yeah, we did. We had our we had a very nice chat with a very nice dragon man.
Yep, and we're going to go deal with create a lich problem.
Yeah,
I was going to say deal with a lich problem, but I think that's actually the opposite of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think we're going to create the lich problem and then end up having to deal with it, because that's our lot in life. Is to deal with that nonsense.
You know, for the first time, this didn't help at all. Oh wait, this is just where we talk to the guy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's why this isn't helpful.
Oh, and we fought a snow mimic.
Right.
We did.
Right, the snow mimic. Okay.
I did go on a bit of a tear with Simon and my Friday group about mimics when the mimic situation happened. Bertrand, you've traumatized me.
Is it mimic PTSD?
Yeah, it absolutely is mimic PTSD.
I don't know if you guys know this, I really like mimics, like a lot.
PTMD, actually.
I humored the idea this week that for the next campaign, my character was going to be like a mimic hunter, and his job would be to like kill and slay all mimics.
See, this is what I'm talking about when I say I enjoy playing meta D&D.
See, that's messed up because I was thinking my next character would be a mimic.
But I came to the conclusion that would not frustrate Brickroad at all. Brickroad would use that as an excuse to introduce a mimic at every single opportunity. So I rejected that idea after 5 minutes.
That's the beauty of my DM style, is like you can't really frustrate me like that. Because I can always come back to the table with something sillier.
Sounds like a challenge.
No.
Some of the Saturday DMs that we've been under, it's clear that you can frustrate them. Like if she's playing a roper and she can't figure out why the roper's not able to actually do anything.
So, Nodal, I'm going to stop you right there because that's the kind of like brinkmanship that caused the Cold War.
Wait. Which one of us is the USSR in this situation?
You are.
I am. Wait.
You're the goddamn commie there, Brickroad.
I think it's all communist all the way down.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You've been given a quest by Breniar the Great Glimmer to go to a place called Vornacht's Castle, which is far away in the icier wastes of the Great North. And he wants you to do this because he sees some large magical cataclysm building up that is similar to the cataclysm he remembers from his youth, when many of the kingdoms of the North were rent asunder. This lich you're supposed to resurrect is one of the warriors from those days.
So, here's my question. We went back and we retrieved a branch similar to the two that we had found earlier in the House of Torment, and we were going to return this branch to Breniar and have him and his kids do something with it, make it into an arrow of murder slaying. I don't know exactly what kind of murder slaying because we didn't get that far.
No, I think murder slaying was correct.
Well, it's a specific type of murder slaying.
So if it's an arrow of murder slaying, does that mean if you shoot somebody, it heals them?
Yes.
No, it slays murderers.
Yeah.
Well, no, that would be murderer slaying.
Right. And a normal arrow would do that.
Yeah, that's just an arrow.
Who has that arrow?
We don't have the third arrow yet.
We don't have the third arrow yet. All right.
We just had
Right, we were on our way to do that.
Yeah,
Right.
we were on our way back.
We were on our way to do that, and also we were going to make sure to get Birdie the recipe for black powder.
I
Right.
don't
No.
remember that part.
No, I
That sounds right.
remember that was a strong veto.
Listen. Let's when we get back, we'll have a vote, right?
And
not a
the vote will
democracy.
be-
What?
The vote will be 4-1. No.
I don't know. It seems like red is on my side.
I'm confused. Do we let Birdie vote?
I mean, that's also true. So yeah, 4-0. Yeah, no. There we go.
I don't remember giving the Kobold the franchise.
I am
Wow.
desperate to make a really inappropriate joke right now,
I mean,
but we're trying to keep the stream like PG rated, so I'm just gonna swallow it and hope it doesn't give me cancer.
That's just like you.
Yeah,
Just put it down here by your liver.
let it just metastasize down there in my guts. But yes, you returned to the Dungeon of the Ladder, to the House of Torment, and you slaughtered, after a fashion, the living wall, and found a third branch. So you now have 3. You have one that's gray with blood red leaves, one that is white with blue veins and needles, and one that is gold with silver leaves.
I think the one that was red was the arrow that Adrex is the one who got the arrow, so I hope he took notes on what those things actually do.
Nope.
Adrex.
I mean, that's fair. I didn't take notes.
Birdie. I've never asked you for anything in my life, yet I'm here asking you for this now.
I'm sorry, but I'm just over here being disenfranchised.
Okay, here's the thing, though. You weren't disenfranchised because you never had the franchise.
I'd have to go back and look at the VOD, because holy shit.
Sorry, what
I
was
do
your
know
name?
that. I do know that one of them
One of them was demons, and I think the other one was arrows.
Oh, yeah, there's a
undead.
dragon slaying and a... I
Dragon.
don't remember what the other one
Undead.
is.
Undead.
Yeah, that's right.
Undead was one. Dragons. Do we know what the third one was?
I don't
No,
know.
because we didn't make
No.
the arrow yet.
Bernier hopefully will be able to tell us once we get.
So these are like cuttings from trees, right?
Let me just write that
They're
in my
magic
journal.
trees, though.
So what I'm saying here is maybe we made a mistake, right, in making the singular arrow. What if we had planted the little twigs, and we could have had whole...
In a couple of years, yeah.
Wait, hold up,
we don't have
though.
the time.
I'm almost certain that's not how trees work.
Well, what if when you shoot the dragon, the way it slays it is that a tree grows out of where the wound is,
Listen,
like instantly,
that is
impaling it.
that's exactly how trees work. You can plant trees on top of other trees, and it's weird. Trees are magic.
Maybe we were supposed to make arrows with them, and that's why they're called shoots.
Shit.
You guys
Good night. We're done.
Let me know when you're
Thanks
done.
for watching, everyone. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Brenier gave one of you a valuable gift.
Yep, it sure
The
did.
bow.
Which is on my character sheet, by the way.
Nice.
Good.
I went into the D&D Forge and made it, and it is an actual item. I'm very proud of myself. Took an hour.
An hour?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see why these character sheets are better than just the pencil kind, where it would take 2 seconds to just write it.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't update itself. Yeah.
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 Yeah, because the other side of the pencil has an eraser.
I thought we weren't allowed to bitch about the character sheets.
No, you're not allowed to bitch about the character sheets. I can bitch about them as much as I want.
You're not even using them.
No, that's why I'm allowed to bitch about them.
I wasn't even bitching.
My wife says if I'm not bitching, I'm not happy, and she's right.
It's very true. Yes.
I love to complain.
People say that about me too, and they're all so.
No, that's why you and I get along so goddamn well.
Yes, the two of you are basically Seinfeld characters.
Excuse you.
I call
No, that's a
Elaine.
compliment, right? If he was insulting you, he would have said you were an Always Sunny character.
Or a Big Bang Theory character.
You guys make it back to Brenier's tower. as
Yes.
the winter continues to set in. And you're going to have these 3 branches made into arrows?
I think I had already made the 2, and we were just going to do the 3rd.
Yes.
So the gray branch with the blood red leaves, when it's presented to you, you do indeed have this gray arrow shaft with this spiraling fletching that feels like the standard fletching on an arrow, but just looking at it looks like the scales from a red dragon. And it's tipped with this blood red stone arrowhead. The white one, the white shaft that had the blue needles. The needles have been inlaid into the wood itself. And the fletching looks as though it's made out of mist. And in fact, if you take the arrow and move it slightly, you can create trails in the air with it.
I imagine Adrex is playing with that.
Yep.
The arrowhead is pointed like a Phillips screwdriver with a cross shape in the front of it. And it's actually whittled out of the white arrow shaft itself. It doesn't have its own tip. When the gold and silver one comes back, it still has the texture of the golden wood of the tree, but the arrow is much, much heavier. Much too heavy to be fired from a bow, if you didn't know that was its purpose. And it has silver filigree all around the side that expands out into the fletching of the arrow. And the tip is very broad and hooked like a harpoon with a golden arrowhead. The gray one is intended to slay dragons. The white one is intended to slay undead. And you're informed that the gold one is intended to slay the metal men.
That's convenient.
So these metal men have been problems for eons then.
What color was the dragon slinger?
White. No, gray, white, and then gold for the 3.
Gray.
Dragon is
Thank you.
gray. White is...
White is undead, gold is metalman.
And Adrex isn't colorblind, right?
I'm not even sure if Adrex is warm-blooded.
I don't know. No.
Okay, just checking.
Maybe-
Just making
maybe-
sure.
I think it's a color. I think.
To make sure.
I mean, he's been drawing
Can
with
any of us
crayons
see
for all this
color?
time.
Really? How do we all know we're looking at the same colors?
Windy can't.
What, you guys don't see ultraviolet?
Adrix goes back to playing with the misty arrow.
Birdie's like, yeah, everybody knows grass is just that nice gray color, right?
Kobolds just have 30 different.
Smacks his forehead.
So, if I remember correctly, Breniar said that we were supposed to. There was a tree that was petrified by a group of adventurers long ago. That this tree, when it was planted and petrified, sealed the Lich woman's ability to regenerate.
Correct.
And the idea is we need to use some kind of ritual that Breniar either has taught us or will teach us to depetrify the tree, at which point we can chop it down, burn it, do whatever we need to do.
When you've returned, he's prepared... first of all, he's prepared a large sledge for you to carry across the terrain, which is becoming snowier and snowier by the day now. And on this sledge, first of all, he's got any provisions that you might need for your trip, which you can go ahead and add to fill up your rations, your ammunition, whatever you need to do. As well as 3 huge bundles of sticks. They're made of wood. They're very smooth to the touch. There's no splinters or twigs. They're unbelievably straight. Like, these sticks would make excellent arrow shafts. But they're each about 2 feet long, and there are hundreds and hundreds of them, bound up into 3 large, round bundles, set on the back of this sledge.
Stack torches, provisions.
Are any of you proficient in land vehicles?
Yes, I am.
Is anyone else proficient in land vehicles?
Nope.
All right.
Yeah, no.
I've been asking for a cart for a year now.
Birdie, I guess you're going to be driving this sledge.
Oh yeah.
To that end, he has
What's going to
two
be pulling it?
enormous red-haired elk. Will be pulling the sledge across the terrain. Does anyone else requisition any other kind of provisions from Breniar before setting out?
I am going to ask for the recipe for black powder.
The child you make that request of gets this very mischievous look on his face and asks what you intend to use it for.
I don't know. We might have to blow up a lich later.
He tells you that gifts like that cannot be given without a proper purpose in mind. This is too dangerous a weapon to just administer willy-nilly. If you have something specific you want to blow up and Breniar approves, he can give it to you. Otherwise, he's not just going to load you up with explosive powder.
I don't want the powder. I want the recipe to make the powder myself.
He's definitely not giving you that.
Darn.
So I have this cool bow,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got these 3 cool arrows. But I'm gonna need ammunition if I'm gonna use this bow for not the cool, awesome arrows.
Okay, well, as I already said, you can provision you with whatever you need for this trip. So you can take a
Does that
quiver of
include-
20 arrows.
Does that include silvered arrows?
What do you imagine you'll need silvered arrows for?
I don't know. I just always feel comfortable when a weapon is silvered.
Then you get the same answer that Birdie just got. If you have a specific need for that sort of ammunition, he's happy to provide it.
Birdie raises his hand. Again, we might have to put down a lich.
To that
Raazu
end,
speaks up.
Birdie is asked whether he imagines a silver arrow is more effective against a lich than any other kind.
Is it? I don't know, but it can't hurt.
Windy raises a hand. What's more effective against the lich?
In life, this particular lich was a student of abjuration magics. She was especially proficient in magics that could protect an army that was marching across hostile terrain. It was said that when she traveled with the great armies in the last days of the Cataclysm, that their enemies were never able to locate them, even through divinations.
Okay.
And so you're given that sort of story.
And Windy looks over at Red like, what does that mean?
Red shrugs. Red looks at Birdie. Is that some sort of magic thing?
Birdie says, she makes shields?
Was that a
Question.
metaphor?
Like, why are we waking this woman up again?
Breniar's like, what have I done? What's her name? What's the name of this lich again?
That's an excellent question. Which I have here somewhere.
What's
No,
the,
I don't
what's
have
the
it
name
up
of his son? That was.
Oh, right.
Red, I've been thinking we should just use like come up with some mnemonic devices for magic.
Mm-hmm.
Because like this whole training thing is really cool, but it seems to take a long time. I'm talking about things like if a lich you're fighting break out the lichen, or like but whatever, you know, liches are weak too.
What?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I get it.
I assume that
Breniar's
Birdie
son.
teaches all of his classes already, though.
Breniar's son is named Nathanax.
Naphanaics.
who wielded the bow that you were gifted.
Naphanaics.
And his lady
The one-
lover, the lich you're going to resurrect, was Lady Sana Vorina.
Ooh. Good question. The question, by the way. Is she going to be mortally offended seeing someone else using that sword?
The bow.
Or that bow, rather. Or is it just like he would want us to make use of it sort of thing?
There is absolutely no way to know what sort of state of mind she's going to be in if you successfully wake her up.
Well, if she seems crazy, I feel like that answers a few of our questions. So maybe it is best that we just leave that up.
Castle Voronok lays in a place called the Snowless Valley, which is at the time, a sort of geographical oddity. It was a place that never received snow, even though it was in the extreme north. That was, of course, long ago, during the ancient civilizations, before the first cataclysm and all that. Since that time, regular weather patterns have reemerged in the Snowless Valley, and a white dragon now called the Ice King has moved into the region and has been there for 1,000 years.
Berker, before we depart,
Mm-hmm.
I want to find the kid who was speaking Moakton with me before, and I want to take some of that herb on the road. And Raazu presents 100 gold pieces. Says, I don't want to. I know you probably can't accept payment, but this is more for my own. I want this for religious purposes.
What purpose?
Here's my intention. When during the route, during the downtimes when we break for camp, Raazu is going to take some of this herb and offer prayers to Osram and drop the herb into the drop a small quantity of it into the campfire.
I don't know that I gave it any sort of aerosol properties. But yeah, okay, if it's for religious purposes, you're able to requisition some of the ooks,
Okay.
as I recall.
Yeah, no, but that's kind of where that's kind of what she's doing there.
So are other people invited for this? Because I could go for some religion.
I mean, I'm not a religious leader. I'm a soldier.
Birdie,
But if you want to offer prayers, then that's on you too. You can
Birdie,
do that.
maybe an animal handling check.
That is
Can't see this going any way but well.
a 20.
A 20?
See, told
Do
you.
you name your elks?
I mean, we'll call them Elk A and Elk 2.
I feel like that's not going to fly with Nodal.
like obviously Wendy's gonna name the elks. Like, we're just gonna get that out of the bag. Birdie
Wendy,
does not care.
do you name
What
the elks?
Oh, absolutely.
I cannot wait to hear this.
Yeah, you're gonna need to give me a few minutes.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, it'll come up. Don't worry.
Like, I'm a little disappointed, Nodal, because you busted out that cat name like it was nothing.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Oh shit, you're right. It does have to be a windy elk name.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That's
Okay.
why I can't wait.
As you leave the Great Glimmer's realm, as you head out overland, there's a small amount of snow on the ground. Not enough to actually require a sledge like this. But Birdie, as you're driving this sledge, what you realize is that it's gliding along the grass and the rocks of Brennier's realm as though you were driving it on across like freshly packed sheet of snow. Those of you marching alongside it can see the streaks of snow that the sledge is leaving on the land. It creates its own path as it travels. And the going is very, very easy. At least until you get the borders of Brennier's realm. And then something awful happens.
Well, I'm not paying $10 for the membership. Like, let's be real here.
The what?
Please tell me someone got it. Never mind.
If you think it's a chest, it's probably a mimic like all the rest.
Also, their names are 3 hoofprints left in the unbroken snow, and the dawn breaking over the cliffs, blinding the foe.
Is everything just gonna rhyme from here on out?
Everything's in the mark.
What is your intention with the metal patrols? You do have to cross their path at some point. Is the intention to intercept another batch of them and destroy them? To allow them to march by, to try to do something else weird with them?
So we were told we would get an explanation for why it was a bad idea to fight them in the first place. Did we ever get that?
Who did you ask?
Probably one of the children.
Okay. The reason it's a bad idea... It just started raining really heavily outside. The reason it's a bad idea is... Brenniar suspects that Mammon, who was once one of the vassals of the Lord of Blades, has found a way to command a lot of these old armies that have long lain fallow, these metal men. Brenniar also suspects that he's found a way to relight the Lord of Blades forges and create new, modern versions of these creatures.
Mm-hmm.
That if one of these marches doesn't make its proper patrol schedule, essentially word will get back to Mammon very quickly.
Ah.
So the question is, are you trying to get his attention, or are you trying to avoid his attention?
No, I think we should avoid his gaze for now.
Yeah, if we're gonna get his attention, it should be on the way back.
Okay.
It should be... Yeah.
I think it should be never.
I'm saying, if we have to, if it's a choice between now or later, I would prefer later because we need to be able to complete our mission with this lich without dealing with a battle on 2 fronts.
Okay. You do, however, have to cross this patrol path at some point because it essentially forms a huge miles and miles long ring, more or less, where these patrolmen walk out this carefully mapped out perimeter. And your path takes you across this road at some point. Being very careful as you come up to it. Not being aware on whether this patrol is ahead of or behind schedule or where it might be. Instead of seeing a patrol, though, you find a group of humanoids who are in the area. They have a campfire set up. You see there's smoke rising in the distance from a long ways off. And that's the first thing you see. Birdie brings the sledge up to a halt so you guys can decide what to do about this.
Can we tell what direction they came from?
Right now all you see is a column of smoke rising from their campfire and a small group of humanoids in the area.
Do you think you can get eyes on them, Red, and see what their intentions are?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sneak up on those. Is there any cover in this area?
Yeah, bits of rock and foliage here and there. And these strange, like, obsidian teeth that poke up out of the snow in places. You can also wait till cover of darkness if you want to sneak up that way.
No. That's a stealth check of, I believe, 32, but let me double check.
Wow.
You got it, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Can I borrow some? Can I borrow some of that roll?
Yeah, 32.
Red.
Mm-hmm.
Getting in close, nearest to the fire, they have... This group has their own large sledge. That looks like it's... It has a huge leather covering pulled down over it to protect it from the snow. But you can see that it's stacked up with furs and meats and things.
Mm-hmm.
the humanoids all seem to be outfitted with various types of weapons, and you mark them for a hunting party. But it's peculiar because there's not a lot of wildlife in these parts. You haven't come across a lot of actual animals. And they do seem to be searching the area for something. You see a lot of footprints in the snow covering a lot of area around you, and you can tell that they've been in this spot for at least a couple of days so far. The humanoids are... It's difficult to pick out which one, if any, are the leader, but the one you pick out, there's an old orc wearing filthy piecemeal armor, and wearing an old brown cloak with no adornments on it. And he has 2 huge axes worn on his back. The second, at his side, quite often, is a second orc with a longbow and a quiver of arrows over his shoulder. Very notably, you don't see these orcs wearing any kind of tribal markings or face piercings or colorations. The third one is a very young orc, armed with a spear. Near to the sledge, you see a very large humanoid, which you mark as a Goliath. He does not seem to leave the sledge, and in fact, you don't see any beasts of burden around. It looks like they're using this Goliath to pull their own sledge. And nearby to the sledge, which you take to be guarding it most of the time, are a pair of bugbears, each with a longsword. Make me a perception check.
That's gonna be a 9.
A 9. So yeah, you study the orcs for a little while, expecting to see some kind of tribal colorations, markings, some kind of war banner, but you don't see anything like that. The only thing that kind of seems amiss out of this little hodgepodge are the 2 bugbears. The hair on their face and head is lopsided. One side of their face seems to be shorn of all of its hair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're in the area investigating something, and you think they've been here for a couple of days.
Can I judge by what's on the sledge how long their provisions are going to last? Like how much food they have or anything like that?
Way more food that a group of this size would need. In fact, make a survival check.
I believe that's a 16? Yeah, 16.
Way more food that a group this size would need. It's possible that they could hunt the meat and then freeze it throughout the winter, but something tells you that even that's not what's going on here. And watching them, they've got 2 armed bugbears guarding this sledge pretty much at all times. You're thinking they've got animal furs and slabs of meats and carcasses and things draped over something more valuable on the back of this sledge.
Okay. Yeah, I'll sneak back to the group and share all that information. Raazu or Adrex might know more about either the bugbears or the local populations that this could be part of, and how best to proceed. Personally, I think we should avoid them. I think we could probably. I think Adrex especially could pick us a path. We don't have to worry about them right now, and I doubt they're any danger to anyone we care about.
What would that detail about bugbears having themselves partially shaved? What would that tell Raazu?
Any number of things. You've known bugbear tribes that shave their heads and faces completely. It's like any goblinoid tribes are weird like that. They'll do any number of things to differentiate themselves from the other tribes.
Raazu
So it doesn't tell you anything in particular. What does seem strange is that the bugbears would be working with orcs in the first place.
Yeah, that's the other thing that's kind of weird is why are these bugbears, unless they've cowed them in some way.
Did it seem like...
thought bugbears worked for anyone they thought to be like, superior, like the whole military thing.
Not orcs.
Whose territory are we currently in? Are we still in the Glimmer's territory, or is it
No,
I remember he's in the border.
you're well into no man's land at this point.
Okay.
Very sparse, very desolate out in these parts.
You mentioned that they had a Goliath pulling the sledge. Did it look like he was there willingly?
Couldn't tell.
You didn't see any chains or anything, but also this Goliath was not armed.
I mean, I would like to point out that the last group of people up here we met tried to kill us and then got us eaten by a snow mimic.
We took care of all of that. It's fine.
I would like to point out that the last group of slavers we found, we killed. And that seems like a streak that's worth continuing.
They don't seem like slavers to me. I don't know. I feel like the Goliath doesn't necessarily look. It didn't jump out to me as being a slave. I'm usually pretty good at spotting that.
I mean, too bad we don't have anybody to send out there as bait to see if they just, I don't know, try and enslave them.
Raazu just gives a cool glance at Birdie.
I can't tell if he's doing it on purpose or not.
He is.
Wait, are you volunteering to be bait, Birdie?
No. Why would you say that?
Is this becoming like a thing for you? Oh no, don't make me go be bait.
So what's next?
No. Birdie's having an existential crisis right now.
Sorry, I'm gonna focus.
So-
Gonna focus.
I don't know if I feel like we lose maybe a day or two trying to skirt these guys. So I don't know.
Like, how close to the road are they?
They're camped right on the road. You guys are approaching the road from the north.
Oh.
So the
I don't-
metalmen would intercept them?
If they were here when the Middleman Patrol came by, yes.
The thing
I mean, I
that
guess.
Oh.
Do you think it's worth telling them not to fight the middlemen? I mean, I don't know. I don't know orcs to be reasonable.
Well,
I'm
Not
just
to-
curious what they're looking for. If they've been here for a while, like we weren't in this area, so they're not looking for us.
Well, I mean,
Oh, do you want to avoid them, or do you want to try and talk to them?
I'm fine with talking to them. If they decide to get hostile, then we have more than enough tools at our disposal to deal with that problem. I'd say.
Yeah,
So,
let's figure out what they want.
so Adrex, do we go up with a white flag, or how do we let them know that we're not there to stab them?
That's what we did last time, wasn't it? We're just like, hey, we come in peace. Yo, here's a white flag.
we also
Very
had
well.
an explosive
Worked
barrel
last time.
last time.
I also meant for the time before that too, when we came across a group of
Are the
wanderers.
elks foraging, or do we have feed bags and provisions for them on the sledge?
You have feed bags for them.
Should we rope down the sledge and go over?
Yeah,
That's
let's
probably the best idea.
put the kickstand down on these elks and head over.
The elk stand?
Yeah.
How are you approaching their camp? Who's going? What are you saying? What are you carrying?
I'll head over because we're gonna want Red to be talking. So I'll head
Yeah.
over with Red
Yeah.
because I can
Yeah.
leave my weapons behind and still be dangerous.
Adrex has a cool new bow,
Mm-hmm.
so it would be
You can stay back.
yeah.
Raazu will approach with them.
Okay, so Red, Raazu, and Windy are approaching.
Yeah.
When they take notice of you, the two bugbears move so that they're interposing themselves between you guys and the sledge.
Mm-hmm.
The two older orcs, the one reaches back, puts his hand on the hilt of one of his axes. The young one hefts up his spear. The third one stays behind at the sledge near to their fire, and he draws an arrow on Windy, who's taking the lead, marching in. And they just hold there like that for a moment. And when you get within...
Under what? Oh, go ahead.
Are you going to start the festivities off here?
No, I was gonna call out under what banner do you serve, but if you want more description, then yeah. Go
No,
ahead.
that was the end of the description. They were about to start shouting
Okay.
at you. But if you want to shout at them first, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Red'll could call out, "We don't mean to fight." In common.
Okay. The two orcs that are approaching you, the one with the axes and the one with the spear, they get close enough to you within, 30, 40 feet or so before Raazu starts shouting out. And you can see the sides of their faces are somewhat disfigured. Adrex, you're not going, right?
No.
And none of you three are trained in medicine, is that correct?
Yeah.
You do notice, however, coloration on the sides of their faces. The old one with the axe has a rust-colored mark on the right side of his face. The young one with the spear has a white-colored mark. And if you squint, you can see the other ones back at the camp. The one with the bow trained on you has a brown mark. Both of the bugbears have a green mark. And the huge Goliath has a silver mark. And all of their faces are similarly disfigured. Raazu calls out, "Under whose banner do you serve?" And the rust-colored orc shouts back, "No one's banner," and then calls out, "What's your business in these lands?"
We're just traveling through.
The rust one again calls out, "Is this your first time in these parts?"
In this area, yeah. Is there anything we should know?
He tells you that around the time of the next sundown, an army will be marching along this road. And then if you're in these parts at that time, it's unlikely that you'll survive. And at that,
Sorry.
his hand drops to his side. He takes his hand off of his axe.
It's our intention to be well beyond that before the army passes through. Then.
He regards Raazu for a moment. And then he calls out, "You're not flying a banner either."
No. But we are here under the auspices of Breniar.
Breniar's lands lie within the perimeter of the Patrolman's Road.
We visited him before making our way out here.
So you must have crossed the road at least once.
We did.
That wasn't a roll, I just accidentally dropped a bunch of dice.
And they all rolled initiative.
Actually, no, screw it, that was a roll. I did not tell you what guys for. I'm sorry, what was the response to his observation?
We did.
And that's why we're going to take your advice and avoid them this time.
Yes.
Can I do an insight? Is he talking about Metalman army or an army of his own people?
So far, everybody who's talked about this Metal Man army that you came across have consistently used the term patrolman.
That's what I thought. That's what I was thinking. These guys also look like they're a provisioning or supply line group for an actual army.
He calls out to Windy. Says, "Avoid them this time. What did you do to them last time?"
We had a small skirmish. Nothing too fierce.
You couldn't have had a small skirmish with these patrolmen. They march 30, 40, 60 strong sometimes.
They attacked us. We defended ourselves.
How many did you slay?
How many
40?
did you say they travel with?
Was it 4x4 or 5x5?
You guys
4
slayed
by 4.
3 groups of 16.
Yeah.
4x4. Okay. Well, no, -1 because it was bubbled.
Well, yeah, but the one you bubbled built itself
Was
out
a
of
group
a
of
bunch of
6
the small
That
ones.
counted as like 8, so
Yeah.
the math is complicated.
64. -1. Plus
8.
2 giant ones.
Mort calls back
Which were
out.
actually part of the 64, so... what?
The math is rather complicated.
He just calls out, "The hell you say?" You see him glance back at his camp, and he holds up his hand, and then lowers it slowly. And as he does, the one back at the fire holding his bow lowers his bow. He calls back and asks, "How many are you?"
4. 3 of us plus a Dragonborn.
And he motions his back and says, "Will you join us at our fire?"
Sure, would you feel more comfortable if the Dragonborn joined us?
He asks if your Dragonborn would feel more comfortable spending the night alone in the wastes.
I'll go back and fetch him.
I mean, maybe. He likes snow.
I'll go back and fetch him.
Okay.
Adrex is staring off into the sky, and he's daydreaming about something. He has not been paying attention at all.
I
to
thought the
what
whole
has been
point of
going on.
Adric staying back was you're going to knock your bow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We all thought that.
I mean, let's be real. Did we expect any less from Adrex?
So, what are you guys going to do about
Raazu
Birdie and the
returns.
sledge?
Raazu returns to Adrex and says, we've been invited to rest at their camp.
That's cool. Hey, I think I'm going to become a Paladin of Bahamut. What do you think about that? Think that sounds cool? So Adrex marches along with
Bahamut.
Raazu. He's like this dragon guy. Don't worry about it.
I feel like I would not be the person to ask. Well, maybe I am, but not in matters of Bahamut, but certainly being a champion of a god, sure.
More importantly,
make
what's
sure
being
that
done
the-
about Birdie and the sledge?
So that's what I was about to say. Is
Okay.
Wendy will just say, "I'm gonna go make sure that our elk are secured, and I'll go back there and like give them the food for the night. But then I'm also just going to be like, Birdie, hey Birdie, Red said there were 4 of us, so you're shit out of luck, buddy. Do you want me to leave you some food too? I've got some jerky. It's really good jerky.
Birdie just straps on one of the elk's feed bags. So the question for Birdie is, are you staying back with the elks, or are you going to sneak up on the camp unnoticed?
I mean, like, what is the? I don't know what the plan is here. I'll just stay with the animals.
Okay.
Like, if they want to disenfranchise the kobold, that's fine.
No, that's already
Yeah, I guess
very
I-
clear.
If they discover you, we'll just be like, oh, we didn't count the kobold.
He's just the driver.
Yeah.
So the 4 of you. Here, let me roll random encounters for Birdie first.
It's like, do you count kobolds?
Oh no.
Birdie's gonna level up like 6 times. Be extremely smug about it.
But he has to share the XP with the elks.
We'll get back and it'll just be like 4 elk on like extremely beefy legs.
He's wearing
Well,
one of
like
them as a suit
glowing
of armor.
magical horns.
Someone took a level.
All the elk paragon levels they've taken.
Coming back to the fire, the 4 of you. And introductions are swiftly made. The men you're speaking to don't have names as such. They refer to themselves as the color of their marking. And as you get close enough, especially Adrex, you can see the deformities in their face are remnants of burns. They've all been badly burned on one side of their face. And having treated this kind of burn in the past, like some kind of, you've used ointments and salves and things, it almost looks like whoever treated them. Go ahead and make a medicine check, actually. See how friggin' twisted this is.
Is it like a brand? Like
Not a
branding
brand
cattle
as
kind
such.
of-
Go ahead and make that check.
Okay. All right.
No introduction is swift when the pattern which is formed as the wind blows over the sand is there.
That is a 21.
The burns look superficial. they're not a brand as such. They're not forming a mark in and of themselves. But that definitely wasn't accidental. These men were all burned in the same way. Had to have been intentional. And you're thinking how you could treat just a superficial burn like that, just for the pain and to make sure it heals properly. If you were to use an ointment to do this, like a cooling salve, and put dyes in it, so the dye actually works its way down into the face as it's healing, this is probably the most horrific way you've ever seen to make a tattoo in your life. And that's what these men have on their face. Their faces, their burns have essentially healed over this colored just splotch. There doesn't seem to be any uniting shape to them. Just one orc has this rust-colored splotch. The other old one has a brown one. The young orc has a white one. The Goliath is silver, and the two bugbears are green. And that's how they refer to each other. Rust is exceedingly interested in this encounter you had with the patrolman. Adrex, what were you going to say?
No, I'm just trying to figure out how Adrex would react to that.
Mute horror?
Yeah, maybe like a little grimace, like, ew.
I'm sorry if I confuse your names. I have a hard time with colors.
Windy, you very quickly learn to discern them by their voices. Rust is the most... If any of them are the leader, he is. He's definitely the oldest. White speaks very, very little, and usually in deference to the others. He's clearly the youngest. This is clearly his first ranging, as they call it. Brown is also a man of few words, and the two bugbears speak only when spoken to. Rust asks lots and lots of questions about your encounter with the patrolman, and what you learn from his end is effectively they were expecting this patrol further up the road. This would have been a week ago or so now. And when the patrol didn't arrive on time, they marched east along the road to find out what happened to it. And what they found, and they described the battlefield in pretty much the state you left it, with just metal plates and shrapnel poking up through the ground. And as they're explaining this, Red, you realize they've loaded all of this up onto this sledge and put animal furs on top of it to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
Rust basically wants to know how you took down this many patrolmen in open combat, that without sustaining any casualties on your side.
Can I roll an insight check? Does it sound like he's like, hey, how did you take out our soldiers because we'd like that to not happen? Or, hey, how'd you take out these soldiers so that we know how to?
The way he's asking the question, it definitely doesn't sound like they're his soldiers at all. He's just surprised. He's never heard of this feat being done so openly. But go ahead and make an insight check.
Alright.
I kicked one like a ball. He went flying.
That part of the story is highly amusing for everybody involved.
That's an 11.
An 11?
Yeah.
It seems that he's asking sincerely, because he's never heard of a group this small taking on a group of patrolmen that size in open combat.
Then in that case, I was just going to say, Wendy will describe it in terms of, okay, so they seemed like they were very easy to focus on something, so the way that I would deal with it is I would make there be some kind of obvious instigator, like someone shooting an arrow from just far enough away that they would have to chase after you, and you could probably break up the group like that. And
he shakes his head and says, you can't break them like that. After they're apart a certain number of yards, they come back together and work as one.
That seems to be what we experienced, yes.
Aside from the big ones, they're individually not much worse than men, so, you know. Put a dagger in the right place and one of them stops moving. Just a lot of them have to dodge. Just have to make sure you don't get a blade in your throat on response.
One of the Greens pipes up and asks if you've killed many men.
Yes. Red, there's a few seconds while Red is obviously doing some mental calculations, then he shakes his head no. Yes. Many.
Rust then asks what you took from the battlefield, what did you do with the scrap?
We left it.
It was. I mean,
It's falling apart. It was
Yeah.
decaying to rust as soon as we killed them.
He nods and says, it's like to happen. It's why we prefer to take them alive.
Take them alive.
Are they useful for some reason?
He explains to Wendy that good sources of metal can be difficult to come by in the wilds.
I can see how that would be. There's only the 5 of us, or the 4 of us rather, and we have enough metal as it is.
I'm not even going to roll an insight check against that. Because I have
come
every...
on, that's me beefing that one.
I have every...
Don't put that on Wendy.
I have every belief that that was intentional. So Wendy didn't mean to say the 5 of us?
No. The funny thing is, I was actually thinking, oh, I have to say the 4 of us, and then my mind went, oh no, wait, that's my Saturday game.
And it can't be a hotel because it's not on the beach.
Right.
Yeah.
Over the course of the conversation, they tell you that they're sent out ranging. They go out and hunt for food and furs for their tribe. Food to get through the winter, furs to barter with. But they also take back a large quantity of metal. And at this, they show you the sledge. They pull aside some of the furs, and you see stacked up just useless reams of scrap metal, just rusted pieces of shrapnel that is blown apart from the various patrolmen you've killed. And he tells you that when he brings this shipment back, that their lady is not going to be pleased at how much useless material is here.
You said that
So how do you bring them back alive?
Raazu seems to be confused and says, "You said that you don't march under anyone's banner, and yet you speak of ladies."
He asks if you see a banner.
It's got you there.
Fair enough, but
Was there another sentence after that, or just ending on but?
fair enough, but that's kind of a lie of omission there.
To which the brown one speaks up. And he asks, who's driving your sledge?
Oh, the Kobold.
Russ looks angrily back at Brown and then back to you. And then back over to Red. You said you were only 4.
Well, the driver doesn't fight. He's just there to handle the animals.
At this, all of them reach back and put their hands on their weapons. Russ
Adrex
tells you...
slaps his forehead.
Wendy, you're not carrying any visible weapons at all. You said you left them back at the sledge?
Uh-huh.
Russ looks at Red and says, you'd better send your messenger bird back and tell your driver to come forth. Then back to Raazu, says, we also don't like lies of omission.
I'll look over at Red like I'm waiting for his order,
I'll just nod to him.
and then I'll head back.
Birdie, good news and bad news. The good news is I didn't roll a random encounter after your friends all abandon you.
Right.
So you're not going to have to fight like a CR-14 monster by yourself.
Well, that's just disappointing.
The bad news is Windy comes back for you alone.
Hey, Birdie, the lies got really complicated.
Why did they even not say I wasn't there? What's going? Like,
I don't know. I'm not the one doing the lying. Anyway, they said you don't fight. So, like, leave everything behind but, like, a dagger, maybe? People carry daggers, right? That's a thing people carry?
Red carries like 50.
It's a banana. How much could it possibly cost?
Anyway, don't knife anyone. Unless, I mean, they knife me first.
like you specifically, like we can let them like knife Raazu a little bit.
If they knife Raazu, I don't think any of us are going to have to worry about them.
That's fair.
That's a problem that takes care of itself.
I'm very happy about this.
So are you taking the sledge back, or are you leaving the sledge behind unguarded?
No, I'll pull
I mean, at this point, we might as well take the sledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll just drive it in, and then like Birdie's going to immediately climb down into the sledge and then roll over and go to sleep.
Windy,
Disenfranchised.
when the
being.
orcs see this, they immediately ask you to bring the kobold forth and ask if there's anybody else hiding in your sledge.
No, it's just a kobold. And I'll pick up Birdie. Bring
Birdie
him over.
just kind of just dangles there like a toddler.
And Red will say in Draconic, Birdie, make yourself presentable for these nice people.
Birdie gives-
Can I do an insight to see if they understood that?
Sure.
Birdie
You
will
don't even
give
like
a
him.
Birdie will give a salute when that happens.
See
and
what
then-
we have to deal with? This is why we only said there's 4 of us.
That's an insight of 21.
All of them understood the Draconic.
Okay. And I'll say in Draconic, he doesn't speak common, but you seem to get it.
It's just making this more and more complicated.
This is incredible. I love what's happening right now.
What twisted lies we weave.
So when you describe the fight with the patrolman, obviously you're going to have to leave out the part about the hunger of Hadar. Because you're saying Birdie
Yep.
doesn't fight.
Yep.
I mean, they just have to leave out the part that I'm the one that cast it.
Yeah, we'll
So-
just leave it out entirely.
Then the question is, who do you say cast it instead?
Yeah, no, I don't think we need to mention magical darkness or slurping.
Also,
No.
none of them were caught in the spell, as I recall.
Not polite, dark company.
No, that was entirely Raazu and Windy that got hit by that spell.
They ask very specific questions about the types of damage they see on this shrapnel. And they seem very adept at knowing what parts of the blemishes on this metal are from just the rust and the deterioration that set in when one of these things dies, and what's the actual battle damage. Like, they're able to point at the breaks in some of these metal pieces that were caused by the peals of thunder ringing out from Raazu's whip. And they were able to show you the burn marks where Adrex's sword seared through the plates. They're even able to show you the spots where Windy's talons pierced through them.
And I'll show them the Dragonbone dagger when they point out the cold. Places where they are cracked and brittle.
And they do. They want explanations for how you're able to do these things. So the question is, how much do you reveal to these creatures on the side of the road?
I mean, again, I'll show them my dagger.
Mhm.
Say, I looted this from a insane kobold guarding a ridiculous piece of musical equipment, and it seems to strike with the bite of, I believe, Adrex, you said it would be a white dragon?
Yeah. Me, I was born with it.
I'm a Dragonborn, so I have a breath weapon.
Maybe he's
kind of
born
just
with it.
spews.
Yeah, that's probably those half dozen there you were asking about
Yeah.
that just collapsed from being frozen.
Rust asks you if you're one of the children of the Ice King.
Maybe.
He asks if you're aware that the Ice King offers rewards for the return of deserters' heads.
Wasn't aware of that before, but I'm aware now. Oh.
So, Raazu, you explain the source of the sonic damage, and Adrex explains the fire damage from the sword. Essentially, what I'm asking is, are you guys sharing that, hey, we have all these magical secrets? That we
Raazu
use
only
against the
says
Metal Men?
that my attack comes from the glory of Osprey.
And they ask, who in the Nine Hells is Osprey?
Nothing to do with the Nine Hells. Osprey is a goddess of the seas.